Hi everyone, my name is Rachel Moses and you are listening to the AHP Leader Podcast. And this is a series of podcasts celebrating AHP Day 2020. We've got 4 podcasts in total, and this podcast is specifically celebrating AHP leaders and role models from ethnically diverse backgrounds. So I'm delighted to be joined by a fantastic panel today, and I'm just going to ask them to start by introducing themselves. I'm going to start with Odette. Thanks very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Odette Richardson. I am the Head of Occupational Therapy at the Newcastle upon Tyne Hospitals, and I am from the sunny island of Jamaica.
Thank you, bringing your sunshine to this podcast for sure. Justin.
Hello everyone, my name is Justin Lim. I am a newly qualified physio working with the United Lincolnshire's Hospital Trust. I am currently on a Band 5 rotation scheme where I'm working in multiple medical wards. And yes, I am Chinese, coming from a long way from Malaysia.
Thank you, Justin. Ruth.
Hello, I'm Ruth Mlanga. I'm a professions lead at South Tees Foundation Trust and also head of physiotherapy. My ethnic background is Black African and I'm originally from Zimbabwe, the blessed country of Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Ruth. Salil.
Hello everyone, I'm Salil Parker. I'm therapy lead in patients and I work at the Birmingham Community Healthcare NHS Foundation Trust. And I'm a physio by background and I'm currently in the leadership role, offering leadership to a team of inpatients across Birmingham. And it's mainly for physios, OT and therapy assistants. And my ethnic background is I'm from India.
Thank you. Priya, is that correct?
Priya.
Priya.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Priya. I am a first contact physiotherapist working with Cambridgeshire Community Services in Peterborough, and I am a Pakistani.
Thank you. Priya. Thank you. Sorry for getting your name wrong first there, Priya. Charlotte.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Felix Otu. I am a Band 6 speech and language therapist working in South West London for St George's Healthcare Trust. And I am part Ghanaian, part Grenadian.
Thank you. And Charlotte comes highly recommended by Rafia, who's done many a podcast with us. So thank you, Charlotte. Now, Naaman.
Hi, Rachel. Hello, everyone. My name's Naaman Anderson. I'm originally Indian, moved here about 20 years ago, and I work as a Band 6 therapeutic radiographer at Somerset NHS Foundation Trust, and I'm due to move to Imperial College London soon, start as an advanced practice radiographer, and I'm also an action radiotherapy champion for the charity there. Thank you.
Thank you. It's amazing to have you. And last but not least, Lyanna.
Thanks, Rachel. Hi, I'm Lyanna. I'm a physiotherapist, deputy team lead for the community stroke team in Northampton. I also am a director at Blue Arc Health, it's a private therapy company, and director of Remote Rehab, which is a CPD platform which specialises in telehealth. And I'm Jamaican, so I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So everyone on this podcast has either self-nominated, which I'm incredibly proud of, or has been put forward as an inspirational and aspirational role model. And I'm just so delighted. We've just had a really quick pre-chat, and just the stories people have got to share are just brilliant. So I'm just going to dive in and just start by asking, why are role models in our profession so important? Lyanna, can I come to you, please? You know, you've got such a important job, you know, you're a director level. Why are role models important to you?
I think when we think about role models, they're people that you aspire to, who their behavior you want to emulate. They're people, you know, that inspire you, and they keep you on your path. And I think for me that has been really important, and I've found it, especially in my trust, really difficult to find role models to who do I go to? And it brings me to a time that really changed my focus, and it really had a big impact on me. I was doing my master's. I got my master's in neurorehabilitation at Nottingham, and one of our modules was on leadership, and they said you have to shadow your role model or someone that you want to be. And I was like, okay, who do I want to be? I was like, I want to run this. I want to run this hospital. I'm shadowing the chief exec. So I was like, I said hi to the chief exec. Can I shadow you? They're like, yeah, come along. So as I was shadowing, I was like, I can do this. This is, I'm only joking. It was it's a very hard job. And we went to the board meeting. And as I was sat there, I was looking and I was like, okay, so how do I get here? How do I become chief exec? First of all, there's hardly any women here. So where do I go now? There's definitely not a Black person here, and definitely not a Black woman. And there's also no therapists. So unless I'm a white male doctor or, company lead or accountant or something like, how do I get here? And I said it to the chief exec. I said, I don't want to come across in a certain way, but I don't really see how I get here. I don't see a Black person. I don't see a Black woman. I don't see a therapist. Like, where's my path? And I was told that there's no problem. What are you talking about? It's no problem. You can get here. It's no problem. There was no explanation. There was just kind of dismiss the problem. And it really affected me. It really did, because I was thinking, okay, you are the leader of this organization and, you can't see the problem, which kind of led me down a path of where I am at now, which is the chair of our BAME group, because I wanted to, first of all, know who the other people who were like me were in the trust, because I couldn't really see them or find them. And then I wanted to seek out all the leaders so that I could find people to talk to and peer support and help along that path. And where we are now with our BAME group is really, we're 1 year in, we're just starting, but we're really making strides to get some role models out there. And I see myself as that. I had an idea, I had the mouth to ask the question, but also some enthusiasm to get a community together, which we do now. So I think it's really important, because and I don't know if everyone else would have that same response in that situation.
I think you've just summarized so many people's thoughts and opinions in that one, conversation piece. And it's about recognizing additional barriers or challenges that may be there because you don't see or live things through the same lens. And I think there's so many people that will be sitting and listening to you and nodding in agreement, certainly from conversations I've had. So good for you. And I think it's about having the confidence to do that. And sometimes there is additional barriers. Well, it might not even be sometimes, it might not be all the time, if you don't fit that white heteronormative appearance, because you're not one of them. So I completely agree with everything you've just said there. Ruth, I'm coming into you next.
Yeah, I think most of the points that I wanted to say have already been mentioned, to be honest. For me, role models give us hope, they make you realize what is actually possible. They give you the ability to dream, so for me, that is the beauty of having role models. They make you think about what is actually possible. When you see it, then you realize that it's actually possible. And I was watching a video clip that was being circulated around a few weeks ago about a little girl who was looking at her mom on telly and shouting and screaming, "That's mommy, that's mommy, that's mommy." In this little girl's mind, I mean, there is no reason why she can never be like her mom. There is no reason why she can't also be on telly one day. So it's about giving people dreams and about realizing what is possible. That is the beauty of role models. And for me, I personally don't have one role model. I've got lots of role models. I pick and choose what it is that I want from the people that are around me, and they make me who I am. So role models don't have, for me, they don't have to be one particular individual. I see things and I think, oh, you know what? I like that. I know we're probably going to talk about this later, but in my profession, you know, they haven't all, my role models haven't always been BAME, from a BAME background. I've dealt with people who were white females, you know, who gave me opportunities, and it's those qualities that they had that inspired me to be who I am. So role models actually are important because they make people dream, they give people hope, they, you know, I mean, people talk about Obama and all of this. I think a lot of people now think actually it is possible for somebody that is Black, that is not fully white, to be a president of America. You know, so it just gives people hope, and for me that is important, and you can't take that away from people. That is the most important thing that you can ever give to anybody. That's what I will say.
I love that. That's just so inspirational. It like warms you up inside, Ruth.
Yeah.
That in that passion as well. And you know, we'll come on to like who are people's role models. But and you know, there might be a question about if your role models do change throughout your career and who you look for different things as well. But you've touched on a point as well about why there might be a lack of ethnically diverse AHP role models. Now, I suppose the easy answer to that question is because we as a profession don't represent the patients that we see. We know that in the statistics. But you know, why do we think there might be this glass ceiling? Why is there a lack of role models as well for other reasons? So Charlotte, can I come down to you first for that, please?
Yeah. So I think when thinking about my own experiences, and I think about how you know, the narrative I was getting from my parents growing up, it was not to be a speech and language therapist. It was probably to go and do something different, go and be a lawyer or something else. And then I think about that in regards to some of my other friends, and we're all culturally, our parents have got an idea of what they want for us, and so that might not be an AHP. A lot of the time as well, I think they probably don't even really know what a physiotherapist is, or an occupational therapist, or speech therapist, or a radiographer. So then that reduces our opportunities or our ambition to go and be an AHP. So I definitely feel like ethno theories are part of the reason why there are a lack of ethnically diverse role models. And just the lack of visibility as well. If you don't come into contact with an AHP, and especially if you don't kind of see yourself within the profession, you may not aspire to do that role. And I think my first contact with speech and language therapy was when I was studying my undergraduate degree, because my grandmother had dementia and I had a cousin with multiple sclerosis. But before then I had no contact, and so didn't really think about that as a career. I mean, that's just part of the reason, but I definitely think that's from some of the people that I've been talking to, it sounds like that's quite a big thing. I know that at our workplace, we are having a student day at the end of this month, actually, and we've said that we'd like to have students who are from an ethnically diverse background in order to be able to show them that these are careers that they can go into.
Absolutely, and I think that's something that's starting to happen amongst some of the AHP professional groups as well, recognizing that need for role models, you know, in schools, where the journey starts there. We can't wait almost until people are at university, because their career path to some degree has already started, or you know, been decided by themselves or by others. Priya, coming into you, please. Priya. Sorry.
You got it right this time. Right.
Sorry.
That's all right. I think I can relate to what you said, Charlotte. Absolutely. I think that's one thing that follows into the culture. However, I think once you've decided whether you want to be an allied healthcare professional, and then you come into it, there's been a lot of talks around implicit, explicit biases that you experience from, different people who you're working with, who your supervisors or your leaders are. and how you're made to feel. But in the end, there's always one thing that I always like to highlight, is that although our experiences with these colleagues, with these leaders, shape our self-esteem, but also the insecurities that we might already have, coming from a cultural different sort of ethnic background, and we've all got our stories, how we came to the UK, etc., different struggles that we normally might have to face that others might not. All of those insecurities, low self-esteem, and various different experiences, if they lead to make you believe and make you question, am I good enough? It's almost always that question, people start thinking, well, am I deserving of becoming a role model? Or if let's say a senior leadership post comes up, sometimes before somebody else questions you, we start questioning ourselves and just kind of discourage ourselves and not even apply for it. So I think that's something that's really important for us to look at as well, that if we take our communication skills, our accent, or if we know more than one language, as a talent and as an invaluable skill that we've got, rather than a weakness or something that we sometimes hide or try to fake, our accents, for example, or just shorten our names. I think if we start to embrace it more and believe in ourselves, and take up those opportunities, I don't see why we wouldn't be in those places. So definitely that's one thing that I feel like we need to actually embrace ourselves, really, and then build up on our strengths and work through things to actually become role models. Sometimes we might even find that we are role models, but it's just the case of recognizing ourselves for then other people to actually recognize us. Rachel?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think part of this is that allowance to recognize that you are the role model. And
Absolutely.
some people feel like that it's like being big-headed or putting yourself on a pedestal. It's not about that at all. It's about recognizing how you've been inspired, you've took on those attributes that inspired you, and then how you can recreate that for someone else, and so the cycle continues. And it's about just being given the permission, and it's about people around you recognizing that as well, and giving permission for that other person to be a role model. Because sometimes in healthcare, certainly in some of my experiences, is that people are almost, people of power want to hold other people down, and they don't want other people to be role models, and they don't want other people to succeed, and they don't want people to get where they've got, because then they lose that power, and the power makes them important. And this is probably the difference between people who are in those very senior positions being just managers,
certainly, yeah,
and those people being managers and leaders. And I think this is why it's really nice to have such a mix of people who are really successful in their careers and still being inspirational role models for people.
Because I came to the UK about in 2016, so not long ago at all. And everyone was questioning, oh, you're going to be, well, if you're starting in the UK, and I had 2 years experience prior, they said, well, you might need to start at band 5 because this is the UK, NHS is different, etc. I didn't want to believe that. So I went for band 6 role straight ahead. And I got it on my second interview. And then within the span of 2 years, I applied for my first contact practitioner role, and I got it on my first interview. So it really is upon, if you start believing what people tell you, that no, you need to start here, this is where you are, without even acknowledging what you've got. So there are some things that and there's some things that you need to put out there for other people to believe. So it's very important that you actually believe in yourself.
Thank you. So everyone's got to where they are and in their careers, and incredibly successful in own rights, but I'm sure you must have faced some challenges to get there. So I kind of want to move on to challenges that you might have faced, how you've overcome them, maybe how you've used role models throughout that time. And Justin, I'm going to come to you first as our newly qualified AHP panel member, but also an inspirational role model. So Justin, tell us about some of the challenges that you faced.
So obviously, having just newly qualified, there isn't a lot that I can say for my working career, but it is hard to be a university student in general. There are a lot of struggles, and I feel like one of the challenges that I had was the application for jobs in the NHS, and that has made me think a lot as someone who is not local, who is obviously one of the members of the BAME group. So I feel like the main challenge was try to get in for an interview and get a job, because I think like what Priya said, there is apparently a lot of people would tell you that there is a certain procedure to follow. You would have to apply for sort of work at sometimes even band 4s and band before you can get to band 5. And I did sort of struggle because I sent out applications for like 30 NHS trusts, and I got back to like 15 of them for an interview. And most of them are quite challenging because they do say that once we have that, if we have like a local applicant which meets the requirement, you won't be sort of considered. And that is sort of the hard or harsh reality that I have to face. But I did believe myself. I do think that you are employed based on your ability and not from your social background, from your cultural background. And I did believe in myself. So I had to work harder, in terms of my studies, in terms of my experience, try to get as many experience as I can, take additional courses, try to just increase value of myself so that these are actually being seen by the employers. But I do need to mention that there are a lot of trusts, I would say almost 95% of the trusts, who actually publicly states that they do have inclusion and equality in their recruitment policy. So for those that you are either trying to apply for a job or just starting uni, just don't be afraid to go for jobs that you think you are underqualified. Just go for it, because you never know what you would get. And that sort of happened to me as well. At one point, I thought, I might just go back to Malaysia and sort of practice there. But I persevered. I believe in who I am, and just keep on trying until that one trust that actually sees quality in me, then that they say you are actually employed because you are a capable student that would bring a lot of value to our trust. And I know because I've just started, but I am still overwhelmed by the fact that, I am actually working at the top quality trust. And that is because I have worked very, very hard through my university days to be here at where I am. But obviously still sort of very, very underqualified compared to other panel members. And I'm still starting, but this is just the very, very start.
So you're not underqualified, Justin. You're just at a different level of your career than everyone else. And the thing that saddened me in that was that very inspirational and moving dialogue you've just give there, can I just say, is the fact you felt like you needed to add value to yourself by doing extra courses and working harder. It's not about value for you, it's value for other people. It's other people that have needed to say that extra value, because you are no different. In fact, I would probably argue a lot better than a lot of newly qualified postgraduate students, because of the challenges you've had. And as much as interviews are in theory completely balanced, there is bias. There's bias in recruitment. There's bias because HCPC numbers aren't blinded. There's bias in because of the way applications are written. There's bias as soon as you see that person's name on the interview sheet. And then as soon as someone opens their mouth, now that could be someone with an accent, that could be someone with a different dialogue. Like there's so many different stereotypes that exist. And Priya, I don't know if you want to come in and just say out loud what you've put in the chat box there, because it's really nice.
Yeah, so when I went for interviews, I didn't have to struggle so much because my accent is basically I don't have any accent. So I suppose people say it's smooth to the ears. But then my husband, who is Pakistani but has a strong accent, and he is a physio as well, and he did his master's from Coventry, so he's equally more qualified than me, I would say. But when he went for interviews, 7 different interviews, and every time he came back, he would say, Priya, it went well. But sometimes the feedback would come back as saying, well, your communication skills, you need to work on that. And I was like, sometimes I just felt really upset because sometimes, on his interviews, I'd take the day off just for his moral support, and I'd be sitting there listening in onto, when it was over the Zoom and things like that, I'd be listening to what he's saying. And so being in a relatively senior role from where he's starting, I could tell that he was doing a good job. But then when they would say communication, I was like, oh, come on, they should have just said an accent, that this is what they need. Probably someone's got a British accent over yours. And so it was really daunting and disappointing for him that he questioned himself so much. And it took a lot on my end to actually encourage him to say, well, this wasn't you will find a trust that would actually look past this and believe in your skills and look at it in a non-biased manner, and you'll get it there, just similar to my trust. It's amazing. So you'll find it, people who are right for you will actually recruit you, and it's loss on their part if they're actually rejecting you based on something like that. And he's made it, and he's over the moon now. But I think the fact that it was those 2 to 3 months, I could see his confidence lowering every single interview, and every time he'd go, he'd be even more nervous. So instead of practicing the interview questions, he'd be practicing his accent, which was really upsetting for me to see. And I was like, you don't need to change that. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, this has been a very common theme throughout some of the podcasts we've been doing, and we are pulling together a whole podcast on interview bias, and some trusts that have really got it right actually in their interview techniques. So it's a watch that space for that podcast for sure. Now I think I've mixed things up here about who I was going to come to next in terms of the challenges we faced. Naaman, was that you I was going to come into, or was it Salil? Salil, can I come down to you, and then we're going to go on to role models.
Okay. Hi, Rachel. Hi. It's I think so. It's inspiring to hear to what my previous speakers have said. I can relate it to what Justin was saying and what Priya was saying. I think so. Accent and your ethnicity and background can have an bias effect. So just taking a note on those aspects as such. The challenges which I faced was, I think so the first bit which I thought was coming first when I first applied for the jobs in UK. I think so that was an easy, it was easy. But I think so the main challenges which I faced was when I was looking for a career progression. So again, when I was in my first role, it was easy to get my first role. It was pre the agenda for change. But luckily I was in a community trust, and then with the banding and everything, we got, I was at a senior level. So I started as a senior too, for those of you who all know the things pre-agenda for change. But the most difficult bit which I found was moving from a senior level to become that next step as a clinical specialist, because when I wanted to, so my background is physio, I wanted to specialize to become a neurophysio. I had my experience of neuro before coming into this country from India as well. I had done quite a lot of neuro specialty. I was specializing in neuro. And then I have done my master's, and I had my qualification. But it was just at that stage, it was that I was not a BOBA trained therapist. So that was again like a big thing to first stumble over. So then I had to enroll. So same again, people had to enroll themselves fund them privately, which I didn't manage, which was okay for me at that time, that I could go on and do this courses myself. But at the same time, I had very supportive managers. I must recognize them, the managers which I had. They opened up opportunities for me. I was working in an inpatient unit. This was discussed as a part of my PDR, and they said, "Oh no, Salil, we do recognize you've got neuro skills." And the patient compliments which we had from a stroke patient neuro rehab, that was good. They supported me to go on, do some shadowing. They started suggesting me some clinical specialist roles. So I think so that transition was the most difficult for me. To try and become a clinical specialist physio was the biggest hurdle to come over. And then eventually, just cutting the long story short, so I eventually got there to become a stroke specialist physio. I got my dream role of working in a stroke rehab unit to lead a team of stroke things. But then again, after a certain while, it was that I wanted to injection therapy. I wanted to try and enhance those skills to become a specialist, a super specialist, whatever you want to call them, extended scope practice. But then again, there was limitations as with the constraints of NHS, that I had already two of my band sevens who were injection therapists, and the trust didn't have capacity, obviously, to try and fund another injection therapist. And then it was just around that career progression. Okay, where do you go here from next? And that's the whole thing with AHPs anyways, that the AHP career progression is very much limited. You can't become clinical specialist, and we don't have enough opportunities for, whereas if you look for medics, they have got a proper career progression route. They can become consultants, they can go on to different levels. And same for nurses. I know AHPs, we are looking at career progression, but at that moment of time, I was embarked on this choice whether I need to go into an operational role and I leave my clinical role behind, which was very much difficult, because obviously I think so we as AHPs are all at our background, our heart is doing clinical and not doing operational. So I had tried all my operational clinical roles, and then I had to make this tough decision. Oh no, I really want to progress, and how I can take it to the next level. That was okay. But when I became a leader, an operational leader, I've been in operational role for the last 3 years. The biggest thing which I've noticed is around when you come across that, okay, you are in this role, but it's not just about the, as Lyanna said, was something around that having of you of that same from that. And I think so it was just around not just your same colored skin or from BME background. For more or less, it was for me was like around AHPs. All the major roles were taken over on the board was, or the senior level, where by non-AHPs. I wouldn't go into which professions they were, but they were mainly non-AHPs. And that is what is the biggest, I think so, an obstacle, or we need to come over it to how do we get there? How do we get those opportunities to be at the right table at the right time to try and promote our AHPs? Because we all have our own individual ways of doing things, but I think so you can only influence to a certain level. You still need that seat at that board level where they decide to make that as a clinical specialist role as an AHP or that. So I think so that is what I think so. But again, in my leadership journey, I think so I had good role models, but again, they were not BME, and I was quite lucky to have my white allies, because all my managers were quite supportive. They obviously must have seen something in me, which they steered me in the right direction. So, and I'm very grateful of all my managers, because of them, I think so I've steered in the right direction. So, which again, to one of the challenge which I have overcome is same again by, I think so the professional bodies have done quite a lot as well, a lot of work. So attending conferences, same again on my own, privately funding them myself, and not waiting for that LBR funding to come through, and try and do your own self-directed learning, try and look for every opportunities. And I think so that is how we can progress. And if you've got that desire to go, I think so you will follow. So where there is a will, there's a way, kind of thing. So you will lead towards that role. And the other thing which I would say is having that aspect of coaching and mentoring, and having that shadowing. So I think so that helps as you become a leader, you definitely need to have that opportunities, and that's how you need to have that a mentor or somebody to try and have that discussion, that dialogue, which you could steer through. Thank you.
I think I don't even know where to start with that. You've just squeezed so much in. I think one of the things that I really want to highlight is having people like you with that diversity of thought and experience in a role like yours is the first and only step to help recognizing the true issues and challenges, because you've lived them. And I have mentored 3 Indian or male, actually, now I think of it, physios who have had at band 6 level have been completely like career blocked almost, and their white counterparts jumping above them, not just one band but often 2 bands. And you know, a lot of the time communication or approach, communication or communication style, which, you know, you reflect back on and you think, what do people mean by, like, is there a right way to communicate? When you communicate with different people, you change the way you communicate. I certainly speak very differently to my husband sometimes than I would speak to my boss. So you know, I think it's probably just excusing it. And the other thing is that managers and leaders should be seeking out people who maybe do have experience and limitations in terms of the next step, and saying, actually, I am going to give you more funding, I'm going to give you more time for mentorship, because the playing field isn't equal here. And that's our responsibility to start addressing that and changing the narrative like we've never done before.
And
so
I would say something, Rachel,
Lyanna?
Is that when you're trying to go to your trust, so I did a leadership course with the East Midlands Leadership Academy as well, and they had their Visible Leaders Network at that time, which was a leadership days for BAME staff. And you know, there's always this narrative that actually, should you have specific leadership training for BAME staff, or it should just be part of your leadership and you should just access what's there? And I think what I would say is, I see both sides, but the journey that you go on as a BAME leader is nuanced slightly differently. So there's experiences that you have that you need to talk to your peers about. That, you know, when you've walked into an interview and they're going, oh, you're Lyanna, okay, you know, and it's like, what do you, you know, or you don't look like a Lyanna, and it's like, what does a Lyanna look like? It's all those small things that can hit your esteem and your confidence, let alone accents. You know, I have a lot of my colleagues who have thick accents, and you know, it is a barrier when they're trying, when our profession is so ingrained in presentations and conferences and all these things that are based on your communication style. And I think having those types of courses and training and stuff that is focused on things that are specific to your journey, I don't think are bad things and should be encouraged, as well as open access to other ones as well, because a lot of the stories that I hear in my trust from staff, and that's AHPs, nurses, medics, is that they apply for those leadership courses, but they don't actually have the same level of access to attend them for various reasons that aren't always logical. So yeah, that's what I just wanted to add as a point.
No, thank you. That's really powerful. And I agree with Charlotte. It's those microaggressions, and that's exactly what they are. And this happens at student level. So the student has a typically British name. And again, what is a British name? And they're on paper and they phone up and they talk to their educator and they sound perfectly British. And then they turn up and they're not white. And it's the look on the educator's face, and it's the shock. It's just that, oh, I was expecting this white blonde, you know, athlete to walk in, if it's a physio student, or you know, and it's so that they are all microaggressions, and it's how you deal with them and how to, and you know, the next step is to acknowledge them in yourselves, how you approach others when you see them, and to break the cycle. So I completely agree, Lyanna.
I'm not going to waste your time because I'm conscious of time, but I just wanted to make a comment. The only comment I wanted to make is, I obviously talked about having role models initially. If people aren't used to seeing Black physiotherapists, they will definitely be surprised to see a Black student who is wanting to do physiotherapy. So I think it goes back again to the type of people that we have in these roles and ensuring that we have a very diverse profession, right, starting at grassroots level, right to the top. That's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. So I'm going to come to Odeth, who's going to talk to us a little bit about her challenges, but also is anyone who knows and works with her absolutely adores her and cannot speak more highly, as the fellow Geordie as well here. I know a lot of people in that trust. So we're going to start at the negative end, Odeth, and you can tell us about some of your challenges, but you've climbed the career ladder. You're constantly looking for new things to continue learning, and yeah, like how now why you are classed as a role model. Thank you. But so just a small thing.
A short story then, quite quickly. So I came to Newcastle from Brent Social Services. I was working in Brent Social Services. And in 2008, whilst I was in Brent, I was nominated by my colleagues for a category in our staff awards called Supporting Colleagues, because I like to support people, because I think by supporting them, you get the best out of them anyway. And so I went on to win the Employee of the Year category in Brent, out of a total of about 8,000 staff. So I was, that really enhanced my confidence, if you like. And so I thought, oh, well, I can do this. So this job was advertised in Newcastle upon Tyne as head of service for occupational therapy. And I thought, oh, I'm going to go for that one. I quite like the look of it, and I wanted a change from London. So yeah, I applied and I got the role. And I went up to Newcastle, and just over 10 years ago, when you're walking down the streets of Newcastle upon Tyne hospitals, when you're walking down the corridor, there's nobody that looks like you. So you're the only one, you stand out like a sore thumb. So about 2 months after I got there, my boss got ill. And so it was a small department, so we were left sort of trying to hold things together. I was still doing my induction. And I remember as part of my induction, my boss had arranged for me to shadow some of the OTs on the ward. So I went onto the ward one day with one of the OTs, and I was introduced to one of the consultants, and he said, a Black OT? That's a rare entity these days. I haven't seen one of you for a while. So that was interesting in Newcastle. But when my boss got sick, my staff in Newcastle, because they're not used to seeing somebody Black, they decided that there was a group of them who decided there's no way they're going to be managed by a BME manager, because it just wasn't the in thing, wasn't done. And they set about, because my boss wasn't there to provide that bit of protection, if you like, they set about trying to undermine me, and to eventually they put in what they call a collective grievance against me. There was a group of them who said, and it was around my communication skills, surprise, surprise. It was around my accent, that they couldn't understand what I was saying. So there were three things: my accent, my communication skills, and the fact that I wasn't offering supervision in a timely fashion for all the senior staff. Bear in mind, I'm still on my induction. So I went through the trust, in investigating the grievance, decided that they were going to take me down the capability route because I wasn't offering supervision in a timely manner. So I went from Employee of the Year in Brent to capability, and the grievance. So it was a challenging few months, and it really knocked my confidence a little bit, because I thought, And the funny thing was, I didn't have any friends or anybody to talk to in Newcastle, because I'd left all my friends back in London, and it was a pretty lonely place to be. But my mother, who is my greatest role model, always say, there's a proverbs in Jamaican, they said, if you want good, your nose have to run. So it means you have to go through hardship in order to get anything that's worth fighting for in life. So I always remember that. And I thought, well, I can do this. It was at that time that I realized how resilient I was, because I needed to be. I realized that I was able to forgive because I had to in order to move on. And over time, I worked really hard to get that group of staff who felt that they couldn't. I think some of it was around fear, because they've never seen a Black person before in terms of being from the Northeast. So some of it was around fear, some of it was fear of the unknown. They didn't know what to expect. And so I worked with them for quite a few years. And I think now we are probably the best, we get on the best within the department. A few years later, I had the opportunity to kind of get my own back, because one of the members of staff did something really bad and I could have dismissed her. But I thought, you know what, this is her life and this is her career. And I supported her through that difficult period of time. And she really appreciated me for it. I thought, I need to live my values. I need to be able to go home and I need to be able to sleep at night. So, because my experience at Newcastle started so terribly and so bad, I decided that I was going to give some input into the staff network when we started talking about developing the staff network. And so I've been chairing the BME staff network for a few years now. It's really, really interesting. And it gives you a lot of different perspective, because it really takes you away from your own problems and supporting other people. So the challenge I had during COVID was I needed to provide support for a number of staff from the BME staff network, alongside the day job, alongside my own issues. And I found that role models, my role model at that time, I've got many. Lots of my BME friends are my role models because they never gave up. And so my mom, she never gave up. She kept trying, and she always instilled that in us from a very young age. And so that's one of the things I go back to. She was my greatest role model. As an AHP, it's really strange, because in Newcastle, having been there over 10 years, and I can say as a professional lead, I've only had about 3 BAME-OT students through that trust. And we take the majority of the students within the Northeast. So it just goes to show how difficult it is in terms of an allied health profession workforce. If the role models aren't there for people to model themselves after, then there's no point. And so I know Suzanne Rastrick has put a call out for some role models to try and work with, increasing the diversity within the AHP professions. And that's long overdue. I know the RCOT is doing the same. Again, it's long overdue. Our professional body, the Royal College of OTs, we have no equality and diversity lead. And that is in 2020 Britain. It's a real shame. But I think they've acknowledged that they need to change the status quo. And so there's work in progress to try and sort that out so that we can become a little bit more diverse, because not under normal circumstances, AHP is seen as a white middle class profession. We really need to change that, because we need to reflect the profession that we serve, the populations that we serve, sorry. So I just condensed it, Rachel, because I realize this time is running out. So that's me. Challenges.
I am literally, can I just say, I've just went through about 60 different emotions listening to you. I was incredibly upset. I felt for you. I felt emotive. I'm angry, frustrated. I think, just to summarize and just to give everyone a fact here, so you, Mrs., are probably responsible for the reason why Newcastle are one of only 2 employers in the Stonewall top 100 inclusive NHS employers when it comes to equality and diversity, because a lot of it's around networks and BAME networks, LGBTQ. And Newcastle is the top NHS trust at number 40. So the fact that you chair that network, after everything you've been through, you give that to that organization after everything you've been through. Just like massive round of applause to you, and just being that bigger person when you could have reversed that situation and how you've been discriminated against, to be that bigger person and think, I'm better than that, I'm better than you, and I'm better than that. And that is such a powerful message. So, you know, I apologize for what you've been through, but I am so, I mean, from the moment I met you, I was just knew you were someone amazing, but that now you're just incredible. So thank you for sharing that. That will be so powerful for so many people who have listened to that and think, that is such an awful, terrible situation to be in, but you have come out the other end.
But you know, the one thing I learned from that, Rachel, not to cut you, having gone through all of those things, if I have to take a member of staff through a capability procedure, I now make sure that they've got their support in place, because sometimes you have to because of certain circumstances. But if you don't put the support in place to support them to get through it, it's really, really difficult. So I've learned, you know, it was tough and it was hard, but I've learned so much by having to go through that experience. It's made me a better leader and a better manager, I think.
Well, I hope they're listening to this, and I hope they appreciate that very much, because I'd bloody love you to be my manager, Pet, I'm telling you. So big up. So that takes us nicely on to role models. And Naaman, you've been sitting there really, really patiently and quietly, and I'm going to come to you to add in anything else, because we're going to get the patient element in a little bit. We're going to bring in who your role models are, and then I'm going to then flip it onto you about why you're an inspirational role model before we come around to everyone else. So the floor's yours.
I think while I've been quiet, just thank you for everyone for sharing. It's pretty amazing and not very nice at the same time, but you still got through it, and you're talking to pretty much the world, whoever's going to be listening to this. So thank you. I think for me, I'm going to take it outside of work and say my biggest role model is actually my mum. She's a single mum, moved here from India after getting an arranged marriage, as you do, and then worked her way up as the only businesswoman in a mining company to then become the first ever BAME background chairperson of it. So all the people who kept passing her up, ignoring her and dismissing her, she ended up running them. And yeah, that's my biggest role model, is the hard work I think you learn when you come from a different background. I think, as we said about accents, challenges, everything you have to work through to prove yourself. I agree, you don't have to prove yourself, but I think for the past 10 years or so, you really have had to, whereas now everyone's understanding, actually, Naaman, you can speak 3 other languages from India and English on top of that, and actually you still sound better than I do. It's quite nice to know now that I'm not scared of that anymore, whereas I think being brave enough to come into this podcast and show that side of me, that actually that's who my real character is. If I've worked so hard to be not that, it's a bit, I don't know, with everything going on this year anyway, it's been quite scary to admit that. But I think, yeah, so for me, for my mum being in a career where it's predominantly white male and then running it, I think that's my biggest role model, to be perfectly honest. So going on from Odith, yeah, my mum, biggest role model, and the amount of time she's been passed up and people have just ignored her or pushed her out of the way physically, emotionally, everything, but still stood at the top of her game and yeah, does what she wants now. So it's quite nice.
So do you think being so close to your role model has really like influenced you and rubbed off on you, and being that aspiration for you to now be that role model, because you have been obviously put forward as the role model for many? So do you think that rings true? Do you think it's
Definitely,
you just automatically inherited those values?
I think hard work, it can be taught, but I think if your parents, they put that into you, I think if you are from an Indian background, you will know if you don't get 100% in something, your mum will tell you what's what and remind you, or you need to finish all your food or whatever. I think not in a fear way, but actually, yeah, you push yourself, and you know, first, like I said, you have to prove yourself. But secondly, once you start to get there, so I'm only 3.5 years qualified, and actually I'm going into an advanced practice role, which is amazing for me. But again, that is that inherent, my mum saying, whatever happens, keep going. I think, as Justin said, you have to keep trying. Whatever happens, people will keep telling you, no, you shouldn't go for it, you haven't got this, you haven't got that. But eventually, once you get there, you can say, well, actually, yeah, I do. It's hard work, but it's just nice to be where you are, effectively.
So this is, some people might find this a bit cringe, but I want you to be really brave, and I want you to tell us exactly why you are a role model. So tell me what's great about, what do you do great? I mean, I get the sense from you, you're such a nice guy. Your mum has obviously brought you up incredibly well. But what makes you a role model? What is it? What is it that people see in you?
I think it's knowing, coming from hardships from India and the city that I was born in, before we had street traffic lights or road markings, we had the soft drink Sprite, because that was more important for our mayor or whatever at the time. So growing up from that and then coming here where everything is available to you, I think just being inclusive and knowing wherever you come from, everyone has a story, everyone has some element, something to bring to the table. They might not be as loud as some people or be able to show off their abilities, but you need to get it out of them. And I think I've always been very quiet in work, and any role models who haven't necessarily been from an ethnically diverse background, they've seen something in me, and that's something I want to keep passing on as a leader or to students, that, okay, you're quiet, but that's because you're in a room full of 10 people who, as a student, you might not want to speak up, because as a consultant there's a doctor, there's, you know, a very, very powerful nurse, or the MDT coordinator telling everyone to shut up, for example. Actually, yeah, there is someone there who, you just have to be inclusive. I think everyone deserves a chance. And I think, as Odith said, even when people don't deserve a second chance, if you do, that's more powerful than anything, actually, to forgive and just move on and say, fine, I'm bigger than that.
Do you know, that is such an important point. And one of my reflections over my management career is up until, and it pains us to say this, probably the last 3 or 4 years, is I would employ people that were like me. So that were bolshy, that were confident, that weren't afraid to speak their mind. But that doesn't mean it's the only way. And it wasn't until I'd had my eyes opened by a critical friend that I really started to think about, you know, that perception, like everyone said, you employ people that look like you, people that act like you. And you've just hit the nail on the head there about being quiet. So how have you achieved that, being quiet, not being the shouty one, like, you know, I have the potential to be? How is that still possible? How can you still influence in the same, if not more impactful manner? Because there'll be people listening to this podcast that think you can't. You have to be confident. You have to go. You have to put your opinions on people and drag people up rather than help people.
I think for me, it's putting the patient first. I think, as Salil said, wherever you are, even in leadership, we'll always want to be clinical facing. We're not doctors, we're not nurses. So we've had to fight for that clinical time wherever we go, because there's always going to be a nurse or a doctor who can do it better. But for our roles specifically, they probably can't. So actually, from that being quiet, sometimes you just have to let your abilities go. As a student, you have to try and get through your objectives. So if you don't make the grade, people will tell you, but then you have to work twice as hard. But I think for me, it's just, again, it just goes back to the hard work, being honest with myself that, okay, I'm quiet, I have to show it in another way. But I think when it comes to crisis, I probably could speak up if I had to, but I'd probably still say please and thank you all the time anyway. So just about being polite and being honest, really, with yourself. And
yeah, it's about values, isn't it? Like you said, the values that mean to you and mean to others. Right, I'm now going to come around to everyone, so get your thinking hats on, and just as I can see everyone around the screen. So I want to know why you are a role model, what makes you a role model, and if anyone wants to share any inspirational, aspirational stories as well, please do. So Justin, I'm coming to you first.
Right, just let me unmute this. Right, okay. I feel like the main quality that I have, sorry for being a bit proud on this, is me being very, very proactive. And that sort of relates back to why I think I have been nominated as the role model. Excuse me. Because to be very honest, I wasn't nominated by anyone else. I nominated myself because I feel like I wanted to send a message to everyone that you actually need to be proactive to make a change. Not to say quiet, but you have to at least start something. You have to initiate something so that you can be seen. So what I did was, because I have always wanted to create a community of Chinese physios working in the NHS or even in the UK. So that might include Malaysians, Singaporeans, and other sort of Chinese in the UK. And obviously I reached out to Rachel about this opportunity, to share some of my opinions and suggestions. And here I am, who would have thought a newly qualified physio would be sharing this amongst other panel of members, which are so far more experienced than I am. For me, I have been through some times where I have extremely low self-esteem. I wasn't talking a lot when I was in my first year, in my second year, but in my head, I have a lot to speak because I know what's wrong, I know what's right, I know what to do. But now I am more outspoken than I have ever been throughout my university life. And I hope that through this podcast, other members from BAME, LGBT can, just start somewhere. And the best place to start is to speak up your mind more. And it doesn't mean you have to speak a lot, like what you have just said, like what Numan have just said, is to speak at the right time with the right value. And that actually makes your message more powerful than ever. And I feel like I also want to make a change. So, and obviously send a message to everyone else who is listening or watching this. If you wanted to do something, just do it. Don't be too scared. So right now I have just started my own Instagram page. It is all about mindset, because I feel like mindset is the most powerful thing that can happen to anyone. It actually changed people. So the Instagram handle is about, it's called Just Physio with 2 underscores. If you guys are interested, then just go and give us a follow. And it's mainly about, like I said, about your mindset, about information on how to improve yourself, how to see things differently. I saw a very interesting photo on Facebook, which actually teaches me a lot, whereby at the number of 6, if there are 2 people standing at both ends, one of it could perceive it as 9, but the other could perceive it as 6. So that's a very, very interesting picture, whereby different people have different opinions and there isn't a right or wrong thing. You just have to do that thing that actually suits you and the thing that you think that is right. I think I have spoken quite a lot. And I feel like this is my inspirational story to finish off my part in the podcast. And happy AHP Day, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Justin. That was amazing. But at the start, you apologized. So please don't ever do that again, okay? Be proud and own it, okay? Because it's what you've got to say is so important and
Not
so
sorry
powerful.
again.
Not sorry anymore. Yes, thank you. Lyanna, coming down to you.
I wasn't expecting that. Okay. I was nominated for this by someone unexpected. I kind of was like, am I an inspiration to you? Okay. But I think I am a people person. So I like to get to know people and everyone's story and develop people. And I think that shines through. I've been through a lot of stuff. So I wasn't, like you were saying, Naaman, I wasn't the loud anyone who works with me now will not believe this, but I was not a loud person. I didn't like speaking. I didn't like doing presentations. I didn't like to be front center. And so therefore I understand where you're coming from, but I also know how to develop yourself. And my mum was always saying, knowledge is power. You have to work hard. You have to be able to answer all these questions. You have to know your stuff, and actually having that confidence to be someone who is seen as knowledgeable. I think that's what inspires people, and then how I deliver that as well. So the other thing, I guess, is in this time developing the remote rehab platform, I just put it out there. I want to learn. I want to know about telehealth. I want to know what's happening across the world. So I'm going to set up this platform, and I'm going to do free webinars every Monday to develop people across the world. And we are accessing 500 people a week who are wanting to learn from America, from Gibraltar, from Sweden, from Belgium. And that is just putting yourself out there. You know, I had all the kind of internal voice, you're not, this shouldn't be you, there's other people who are more knowledgeable than you know, they're gonna look at you. I had this thing where I didn't actually want my face on the advertising for the webinar, because I felt that, and this is inside of me as someone who people see as inspirational and confident, to say, are you going to want to join when you see it's me? And that is, I had to really reflect on myself, talk to myself, and figure it out very quickly, because it stops you. And if you go on to my LinkedIn, you'll see an article I wrote about the fact that I was actually offered a scholarship to Oxbridge to do neurosurgery when I was 16, and I turned it down. And my dad will never forget it. What I said was basically, I can't, I'm from Luton, like, where am I going? I can't be in Cambridge. I'll be the only Black person there. And actually, if I could go back to that person I was right then and say, look, you're going, then I would have, because that limiting belief changed my life. I am here now. I'm happy with where I am now. Everything happens as it's meant to. But I think those things, that conversation you have in your head can be, like you were saying, Justin, can be very powerful. And so, like you said, I'm just, you know, tagging on to what you said, I guess, is just put yourself out there, believe in yourself. Same as you, Priya, same as you. Everyone on here is my inspiration. I'm going to follow you all, because it's just do it. And, you know, the only thing that can happen is it can go wrong, but you're still breathing. So happy, like Justin said, happy AHP Day. And yeah, come join the webinars. They're really cool.
No, we'll have all of this on the YouTube. We'll have everyone's handles. We'll have everyone's links completely. If you want to put your LinkedIn stuff on there, please do. And you can tell Justin's age group there with Instagram. I mean, he's definitely one of the young'uns. All the young'uns are using Instagram. All us oldies are using Twitter and Facebook for some people. So, Ruth, coming down to you.
Right. Do you know, I had to really think about this. I thought, oh, why would I be nominated as a role model? I suppose the most obvious reason is because, you know, I think I've achieved, you know, a very high position within physiotherapy, and there aren't many BAME people who are head of physios and professions leads within the country. So I think that is one of the reasons. But I do hope that the real reason is that I am fair. You know, I think those who work with me know that, and I think the person that nominated me knows that, you know, I have, you know, I see talent. I am very good at spotting talent regardless of who people are, and I try and signpost people to the right career pathway, because, you know, I believe that everybody should be the best that they possibly can be. And everybody's got something to contribute, something that is different but special that they can contribute. And one other thing is, I think people might look at me and think, oh, she's really brave and she's done all of this and she's achieved all of this, because people know I take my chances. If I think that there's an opportunity, I will go for it. But it doesn't mean that I am brave all the time. One of my mantras is feel the fear, but do it anyway. And what I would say to everybody out there is feel the fear, but do it anyway. Like Lyanna has said, what's the worst that can happen? You'll still be able to breathe anyway. So, you know, for me, you know, just go out there, grab every opportunity that you get. And everybody's really got something different and special to contribute and bring to the table. And I hope that is the reason that I've been nominated and why people view me as a role model.
Absolutely. From just knowing you a short while, I can absolutely say that's probably the reason completely. So Priya, come down to you.
Thanks. It's been inspirational just listening to each and everyone's stories today. I could feel myself and my thoughts echoing there at a lot of points. I think I would just say that being a role model in AHP, obviously there could be many reasons, but one in particular would be that me being able to speak more than one languages, so being able to speak Hindi and Urdu. The patients who we work here with, there's a big chunk of a huge population belonging to that group. So what we did was we had discussions with our trust and convinced them to actually have sort of functional group exercise classes individualized to that group in that language, and we connected with the community here as well, so we could offer some community continuity for similar classes here as well. So essentially it's like a 14-week program for that hard to reach community that we've set up, and we've been quite successful so far. It's been a year since we were running that, and we're hoping to roll it out across different trusts as well. So it's really, really exciting that actually we have flaunted our ability to speak in multiple languages and help that community. And it's been great so far. So I think if you can use your skills, use them.
Absolutely. And for those of you that have never listened to any of the SLTT Time podcasts, they are just unbelievable for some of these discussions as well. They really are. So thank you. That's incredible. Well done. Amazing. Salil, I'll come down to you. We'll flip screens a little bit. And then we've got Charlotte and Neiman.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Again, I self-nominated myself to this podcast today. And I think so it's all about believing in yourself. And as everybody, each panel member have shared their experiences. And it's true that I think so it's all comes down to your hearts and minds. I would say that it's all to do with me, but because I want to be in a supportive role. And I've always believe that, okay, knowledge shared is knowledge doubled, because you always, whenever you share, you get that joy of sharing. And that goes back to my previous experience where I was in a teaching role before coming to UK as well. So I think so that always helped. I had this passion to share my knowledge, and I wanted people to flourish around me and try and gain whatever I can. And that was something which I could give out very easily. It's free, that we all share. So we all are our true readers in, as they say, in individuals. So whether you're a clinician, whether whatever role you are doing in whichever, whether NHS or somewhere else, I think so it's about that. And what I've recognized is also that when you have got that, when you believe and you are true to yourself, I think so the world sees that in you as well. And then you get people more on board, and you embark them on that journey together with you rather than leaving somebody behind. And that's what I think so which stays. And one important thing which I wanted to come on to this panel was, again, to try, and as somebody previously, I can't remember now, said that of being visible, because until unless you are visible, people don't know about it. And people, what I've noticed is that I've learned from other people as well. So you learn from others' experience as well. So if there's something which I can share and somebody else can learn that, I think so that is the biggest reward which we all can get. And it's about that knowledge sharing. And same again, I think so it's so resonating. What everybody has said is that if we would have met them previously, they wouldn't have been that bold, that being able to speak or outspoken. And same, I can resonate with myself, that if people would have known me before, they would not have said, oh yeah, he's like, not that I was not like introvert, but yeah, I wouldn't put myself out there and be so I think so it's about that as well. And I would like to end with just the quote which I think so Mahatma Gandhi had said, around that, be the change which you want to see in the world. So I think so it's all about that. Thank you.
Well, this is definitely just a start. So I'm sure there'll be lots of people reaching out to you as an inspirational and aspirational role model, someone they want to be. So thank you so much. That's so powerful. Charlotte.
Thank you. So I was nominated for this, as you said before, by Rafia, and the email came through whilst I was on leave. So I came back going through all my emails and saw it. I was like, oh, why would Rafia nominate me for this? But I suppose having thought about it, I used to work quite closely with Rafia one day a week, and we'd have such a good chat. And so she kind of knew like what my desires and passions were. But like in our wider team, that wasn't as obvious, because I'm not a quiet person by nature, but I think when I get around more senior members of staff, I get so tongue-tied, don't know what to say. And so I'd rather just not say anything at all. But then in lockdown, and particularly with everything that happened in America with George Floyd, I suppose I kind of just used that opportunity to then speak to our clinical team leads and just say, you know, I wonder if we could change X, Y, and Z, make some adjustments here and just make our workplace a bit more inclusive. Let's, you know, encourage a more diverse working force. And I think that through having that opportunity, I've really been able to demonstrate like my passion. And when I'm passionate about something, I can be really hard working. But I also like to work with people. I remember listening to a podcast once and it said that diversity breeds creativity. So I love working with people who will have diverse opinions and thoughts and backgrounds as well to feed into creativity. So I wonder if that's probably why I've been nominated as a role model. And I suppose one of the things, of course, because you have in your mind, like, I can't really do this, who am I? I'm in a team as well of, I don't know, maybe between 30 and 50 people. And of those 30, 50 people, there are 3 of us who are from an ethnic diverse background as therapists in our team. So just, I suppose, wanting to shy away because of that, because I am a minority and I'm trying to put myself out there. But it seems like everyone's got a bit of a mantra. My one is a scripture from the Bible that says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. And so every day just thinking, I can do this, just continue, because actually you can make a difference, make a change. I said, we've got our student day coming at the end of the month where we really want to just encourage students from an ethnically diverse backgrounds to consider being an AHP of some sort.
Well, thank you. I think you have inspired so many on this podcast and some of the suggestions as well. So, and Ravia is a force to be reckoned with. So, you know, the fact that she nominated you just speaks volumes as well. So thank you so much and great work. Fantastic. Naaman, coming into you next, please.
So I kind of half self-nominated and half my fiance, Katie, she tagged me, and then a few other people saw it and said, yeah, it'd be really good, you should do it. But I did ask if they would nominate, but they said, no, I think it'd be better if it came from you. And I think I agree. It's just about putting yourself out there. I think, as we've all sort of alluded to, is the more we do this, the more people understand that it's okay. And hopefully for younger people, hopefully potential AHPs as well, coming into different avenues of work wherever you are in the country or the world, it's just, yeah, you can do it. That's kind of all I really want to say. I think, yeah, you need to just believe in yourself. If you are the quiet person, it's okay. When you need to talk, when you don't.
I think you've just exemplified that throughout the podcast completely. So thank you so much. And you were tagged and nominated by so many people, like several different avenues. So thank you. And thank you for being here. Now, last but not least, Odette, you're going to have the pressure of kind of summing this up, giving your point, and then we're going to finish on your final note, because I never like having the last word. So thank you.
Oh dear. Okay. So I think I was nominated, I believe, because I lead with compassion and I live my values. I support my staff, and I know that the role that I'm in is not about me. It's about me enabling my staff to give the best care they can to my patients. And so that's always been my mantra. And whatever they need, whether that be support, whether that be physical resources, financial resources to get the kits that they need to, in order to deliver that care, then I feel that's my role to enable them to do that. As BME staff, we often talk about privilege, and often BME staff don't get privilege, but I feel that I'm in a very privileged position despite being a BME staff, because there are lots of people coming behind me, and I feel that my privilege is to pave the way for them to follow. I like to see people grow and develop, and so I feel that I need to do everything in my power to make sure that those coming behind me have an easier road than I had when I started. And so this AHP Day, it will be interesting. We've got there are a lot of programs and lots of hashtags and so on. But I firmly believe that as a group of BAME AHPs, we do have a responsibility to ensure that we support our BAME colleagues to be the best that they can be. And that's my final word.
Thank you. And on that note, I'm going to close this podcast to an end. Thank you so much for the incredible, amazing panel. Please follow them all. I'm sure this is only just the beginning. Happy AHP Day. Thank you very much.